course, we're talking about the news where George Stephanopoulos and the ABC News Department had to pay out in settlement 15 million big ones and offer an apology to President Trump over some of their false claims. And again, a pretty interesting win because, as Will stated, not always easy to win in this type of situation or to even get to that point. So the fact that ABC decided, let's settle this before Trump takes office is very telling. At the same time, you have a weekend where Tim Cook is flying down to Mar-a-Lago, meeting with Elon and President Trump. It's a pretty wild time. Right now, as we're moving into just 36 days away from President Trump taking office once again. My dad, again, Jay Sekulow, has joined us. I want to start this, Dad, first because we've all had a bit of run-ins with George Stephanopoulos, not necessarily a person that has been a bad guy. We've worked with him for years, but there was a moment, a pretty iconic moment, that goes back in the impeachment trial. You were out doing press, and this one still lives on because I saw many people posting this over the weekend saying, remember this, and maybe this was sort of the beginning of the end for some of the biasness that's coming out and some of the ways that the news kind of lies to the public. So take a look at this. This is my dad, Jay Sekulow, out talking to the press immediately following or right before one of the hearings.
One of the sessions during the impeachment trial.
Right. So that's happening, and this is what happened live on television. Go ahead.
Because our position is you still have to meet basic fundamental constitutional obligations, and they haven't. Next.
How much work do you think you have to convince room? How much more work do you think you have ahead to try and convince that room?
And that is Jay Sekulow right there. And let's bring in our panel to talk a little bit about that. You just saw something a little bit new from Jay Sekulow.
There you go. Something a little bit new from Jay Sekulow. But of course, right before that, what they cut to was him going like this, giving the axe to cut off, on your neck, basically saying, cut this off, probably because this is too good of an argument. But Dad, I want to get your initial thoughts of this, but then your thoughts on this settlement over the weekend.
Yeah, well, first of all, I have a good relationship with George Stephanopoulos, and I got along with most of them. And, in those days, Logan, I was doing sometimes 9, 10 news hits a day, and those were right during the impeachment. So I'd come off the floor of the Senate and then go do that one. I'll never forget that one, though, because evidently he knew he got caught doing the cutoff sign. And I was about to say, what I was about to do was they had made a major gap that morning in their argument, the impeachment managers, and I was about to get into the guts of it, which was just going to be a couple of seconds, but he did not want it to go there. So, look, this is the problem the media gets into. And then, of course, the accusation that the ABC News and George Stephanopoulos individually made on air accusing the president of a federal crime and a state crime is what's called defamation per se. So they really had no choice but to settle it.
Yeah, because usually in this situation, and Will brought this up, it's not often if let's say it's a celebrity or public figure versus somebody who's saying, well, they're saying bad things about me on the news or they're saying bad things about me on the internet. It's often a hard case to win. I've been in many of those discussions where people get very upset because they feel like the news is just flat out lying about them. But sometimes there's nothing you can do. So this is a bit of a big moment.
Yeah, so this is the interesting thing here is in the defamation laws in the United States, if you're a public figure, which is clearly the situation here, that the president's a public figure, you have a very high standard to show a defamation case. It's the knowledge of the false statement has to be laid at the feet of the reporter or whoever made the statement. The difference is, though, when it's a crime that you've accused somebody of a criminal act, that is defamation per se. That means it is defamation on its face, and the normal defenses don't work. And that's why they settled it for, hold your breath, $15 million.
Yeah, $15 million are probably what hurt the most, the official apology, I feel like probably too.
Well, and we do also look at this fact that it is something novel, I feel like, for a lot of our audience, seeing the news media admit that they were wrong and having to actually pay out for things that they were wrong about. Do you think going forward in the new administration, we know that the media is not going to back off, but we're seeing the cratering numbers of MSNBC, that Comcast is thinking about spinning off all of their cable division. CNN's numbers are low, and we've got a story we'll talk about there with their reporting in Syria. But now this almost seems to be a sign on the wall for many of those news organizations that maybe they will be a little bit more careful about some of the, dare I say, misinformation that they put out there during this next administration.
I think it's a couple of things, Will. One is that, and I think this is part of it, they have all the media has recalibrated itself and are trying to reset with the incoming president of the United States, who was the 45th president, will now be the 47th president. I think the perfect example of that is Joe Scarborough and his wife, Mika, who's the co-host of Morning Joe. They went down to Mar-a-Lago to meet with the president to try to reset everything. Same thing here. This is a lot of resetting because what they had tried to do to President Trump in 2016 and that term, they're not going to be able to pull off this time. They're just not. We're in a different world. So I think the media is having to do a recalibration. I think that the liberal media, the MSNBCs, the CNNs of the world, are in serious, serious trouble financially. I think that you're going to see a total redo. And Fox and the others are up 12, 14%.
Yeah, they're thriving, and I think you're going to see that too. And like I said, I think for a lot of these companies, you may see it for ABC as well at some point. Now, ABC News, because it's over-the-air network, it's a little different than the way NBC runs, because I look at MSNBC, and I've always told you, I felt like MSNBC is a weird piece in the portfolio of NBC Universal, of Xfinity Comcast, as a entertainment brand, as a company that's a provider of a lot of people's internet and cable, to then all of a sudden have this, very distinct leftist network on MSNBC, something that really takes away 50% of your audience, who is just your average customer, who a lot of them rely on you for service. That's why I think in NBC, it makes total sense for them to get out of that business. For CNN, it's a little different, and for ABC, it's a little different, because ABC, like I said, has more of that crossover. They don't have the cable news affiliate, but you saw CNN. They lost, one of their big anchors last week with Allison Camerata left the network, and you're going to see that happen over and over. As you said, the idea that we'll just go after President Trump for 4 years so he can't run again. Obviously, that doesn't happen this time. So what are you going to have to do? They still have to figure out how to get access, how to have things happen. And if he's talking about tariffs and what does it all end up looking like, I'm sure there's a little bit of being scared there. But we're at that point where now they're reacting. And I find that to be pretty interesting and pretty fun. You're going to see, like you said, a shakeup in the news media. When you have really what I believe one of the big things that won President Trump the election this time was new media. Where the last time, the embracing of TikTok and some of these other outlets by the Democrats, I think highly helped them. You then had the opposite effect, which is President Trump saying, forget about traditional media. Let's go to Joe Rogan. Let's go to Theo Vaughn. Let's go to where there are tens of millions of people who no one else is talking to.